Polyphonic Press, the podcast where two music fans pick a classic album completely at random. Using the patented random album generator, they are given an album to review from a curated list of over 1,000 classic releases, spanning multiple genres. And now onto the show. Here are your hosts, Jeremy Boyd and John Van Dyke.
Hey, welcome to Polyphonic Press. I'm Jeremy Boyd.
I'm John Van Dyke.
And let's not waste any time. We've got the patented random album generator right in front of us here. So let's hit the button and see what album we're going to be listening to this week. And the album we're going to be listening to is Bob Dylan, Time Out of Mind.
Oh, okay. I think that's a little bit later than the stuff I'm used to.
Yeah, I think it was released in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
This is what it says on allmusic.com. It says, after spending much of the 90s touring and simply not writing songs, Bob Dylan returned in 1997 with Time Out of Mind, his first collection of new material in 7 years. Where Under the Red Sky, his last collection of original compositions, had a casual tossed-off feel, Time Out of Mind is carefully considered from the densely detailed songs to the dark, atmospheric production. Sonically, the album is reminiscent of Oh Mercy, the last album Dylan recorded with producer Daniel Lanois, but Time Out of Mind has a grittier foundation. By and large, the songs are bitter and resigned, and Dylan gives them appropriately anguished performances. Lanois bathes them in hazy, ominous sounds, which may suit the spirit of the lyrics, but are often in opposition to Dylan's performances. Consequently, the album loses a little of its emotional impact, yet the songs themselves are uniformly powerful, adding up to Dylan's best overall collection in years. It's a better, more affecting record than Oh Mercy, not only because the songs have a stronger emotional pull, but because Lanois hasn't sanded away all the grit. As a result, the songs retain their power, leaving Time Out of Mind as one of the rare latter-day Dylan albums that meets his high standards. Okay. So this is 1997. So if you're listening, there's 11 songs on the album. So what we usually do is we'll stop halfway through the album and discuss and sort of take a halftime break, so to speak. But this is in 1997, so there's no real side one or side two. So what we'll do is we'll stop after song 5 and then discuss halfway through. And I've linked the album for Spotify and Apple Music, so you can listen along with us on your preferred platform. And this album was released on September 30th, 1997. Genres are blues rock, country, blues, and rockabilly. It was released on Columbia Records and produced by Daniel Lanois. Okay, so here we go. Here's the first song on the album called Lovesick. All right, and ending the first half of the album with Trying to Get to Heaven. This is a pretty mellow album.
Yeah, mostly.
But I actually am pretty much enjoying it. His voice, I like his grizzled voice at this time that he's at this point has had for the last 30 years, but this is sort of, it started, I guess, in the 80s, but this is sort of where it's sort of been. And I mean, it's his lyrics on this are, I guess this is kind of like the midlife crisis album. I don't know, but it is fascinating because he's kind of reflecting on his life in this, at least in the first few songs.
Yeah. Well, I've always liked the song Lovesick. Ever since I heard the White Stripes cover that one, I thought that was pretty cool. And a lot of the other songs are, kind of along that line. The production quality sort of reminds me of like Tom Waits stuff from around this period.
Yeah, that sort of like organic,
yeah,
sort of
spooky almost.
Spooky, yeah, atmospheric, I guess is the well, did Daniel Lanois produce any of Tom Waits stuff?
I don't know that, but I don't know.
Because it might be because of that, but it's very, I like Daniel Lanois is, I know he collaborates a lot with Brian Eno and doing a lot of the U2 stuff, but he's working, he's producing this on his own, and I think the Brian Eno sort of influence on the U2 stuff and other artists that they've worked with as a team sort of has a more electronic sort of influence, because that's what Brian Eno kind of does, and sort of they sort of balance each other out. Daniel Lanois is more of the instrument, miking up an amp sort of approach, and sort of the contrast between the two really works well together. But when you have Daniel Lanois on his own, like on this, it's
very organic and analog.
Yeah, exactly. I really like the drums sound like the drums, like as if you were in the room listening to the drummer without any microphones on it. Like, it obviously there's like some compression and stuff going on to make it sound a little fuller, because you kind of have to do that sort of thing, but it's very subtle. It's not like the 80s gated reverb and making the drums sound 10 feet tall with over compression.
Yeah.
And stuff like
it's nowhere near that.
Exactly. It creates this, like you were saying, the spooky atmosphere, which is really, and it's interesting that the review on All Music was kind of saying that the production sort of took away from the lyrics a little bit.
I'm not getting that.
But I didn't find that at all. I thought they blended really well. Like I felt like it kind of complemented the lyrics. I was reading on Wikipedia, and I thought this was kind of funny, and I didn't know that this had happened. So at the 1998 Grammy Awards, this Time Out of Mind won in the categories of Album of the Year and Best Contemporary Folk Album, and he won for Cold Irons Bound for Best Male Rock Vocal Performance. But at the awards ceremony, he performed the song "Lovesick," and during the performance, they hired, I guess, some dancers to put on a show. And one of the dancers, named Michael Portnoy, he's an American multimedia artist and choreographer, ripped off his shirt, ran up to Dylan and started dancing and contorting with the words "soy bomb" painted in black across his chest.
Soy bomb?
Soy bomb. I don't know what that means. I don't know what he was trying to what message he was trying to give.
I have no idea.
But apparently Dylan shot an alarmed glance at Portnoy, but carried on playing, and Portnoy continued to dance for about 40 seconds until another of the background dancers escorted him off stage. So I've never heard that before. I didn't know about that, and I want to see that now, because that sounds very funny. But I can imagine it wasn't funny at the time. It's like, what's going on? But yeah,
okay,
yeah, I have I have no idea.
Soy bomb.
I have
anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Getting back to the album, I think this is yeah, I think at this point in Dylan's career, this is his first, and I find this with a lot of artists when they get to a certain age, when they reach about their 50s, is they sort of slow down in putting out new material. I noticed it with Tom Petty, where he, like the last 10 or 15 years, he would only put out an album about every 4 years. And I think what happens is when an artist is young, they're very hungry and green, and they can be very prolific. And then once they get to a certain age, they've kind of sort of said everything that they needed to say as a young, angry guy or artist or whatever person. And once they reach a certain age, I think they get a little more reflective and they get a little more careful with what they put out. 'Cause I know, like, at this point, Bob Dylan is probably still writing a bunch of songs, but he's sort of editing himself and saying, well, do I really need to put that out, or can I? And they're sort of more careful with what they want to say and what they want to record. And it makes a lot of the time, I don't notice it with a lot of like rock bands, really, like a band like Kiss or something. Like, their later albums are mostly just songs written for the sake of writing a song. But I notice it with more more introspective songwriter types, where they're more, it's like, I have something that I want to say, but I want to really make sure I have this. They almost develop a perfectionism. And it's just something I've noticed with artists as they reach a certain age.
Yeah, no, I have noticed that too. And part of me wonders what a band like King Gizzard and Lizard Wizard, what their output's going to look like. I mean, right now they're releasing several albums a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what does slowing down look like for them?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Only 2 albums a year.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think at this point in Dylan's career, he was in his, like, approaching his 50s, or at least I think he was in his early 50s at this point. And yeah, he's just like, and like in the 60s, he was putting out like 2 albums a year.
Yep.
And at this point, this is the last time he put out an album of original material. Before this was 1989. So that's a pretty huge gap.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's interesting to hear. It's like, okay, it's almost like it's an event when he puts out a new album, because he doesn't do it very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty apt. There's a, few artists that are, every once in a while they put out an album and, everybody starts talking about it for one reason or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just, I don't know what he's going to do next. He's one of those artists that you never know what he's going to do. And sometimes he completely surprises you. I think he put out like a Christmas album.
Yes, he did.
And like a couple years ago, and he's just going to do what he wants to do. He doesn't care what anybody thinks.
Well, lately, I think I saw an article and he was basically doing a lot of welding and like sculptures and stuff like that. So I thought that was sort of neat. I think he did a gate for his property or something like that.
Yeah, I saw something like that. Yeah.
It was kind of cool.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. And the other thing is I was just going to say, there is not a lot of short songs on here. In fact, the last song is almost 16 and a half minutes. So I guess we'll get to it, get to the second half of the album, and it starts with the song Till I Fell in Love with You. So here we go. All right. And ending the album with Highlands, which is a very long song, but I honestly didn't really feel that it was dragging or anything, even though it's kind of a slower song. It kept my interest. I don't know about you, but it kept my interest through the whole thing.
Yeah, Bob Dylan's one of the only artists who can really do that. He can take a song that's about, 20 minutes long, and he just has so many verses in it, but he tells a story, and it's like I was saying, he's one of the only artists who can really do that. Some people have tried, and yeah, it gets a little bit tiresome sometimes. So, but yeah, I was kind of surprised at that one too, because I was getting ready for one that was going to be a bit of a slog, but it didn't. It wasn't that bad. It was sort of interesting. I just laid back and listened to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm finding that with all the songs, like a lot of the songs are pretty long. A lot of them are over 5 minutes, and like Not Dark Yet, I think that might be my favorite song on the album.
That was a really good song.
And yeah. And I think this is a really interesting album, and I think it's cool that he has this in like this late in his career, because he went through a bit of a slump in the 80s, in that he wasn't writing his best stuff, and he'll be the first to admit that. And so for him to, I think he really took the time and really made an interesting album. I was reading a bit about this, and it kind of surprised me. It said Daniel Lanois admitted some difficulty in producing Dylan. He quoted as saying, "Well, you just never know what you're going to get. He's an eccentric man." And he said in a later interview, Lanois said Dylan and he used to go to the parking lot to discuss the recording in absence of the band. Lanois elaborated their discussion on the song Standing in the Doorway. I said, "Listen, I love Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands. Can we steal that for this song?" And he'd say, "You really think that would work?" And then we'd sit on the fender of a truck in this parking lot in Miami, and I'd often think, if people see this, they won't believe it. But here's what I thought was interesting, and I kind of totally disagree with this part, is with Time Out of Mind, Lanois produced perhaps the most artificial sounding album in Dylan's canon, says Clinton Halen, who described the album as sounding like a Lanois CV.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
So here's my argument against that. So obviously the artist hires a producer for a reason. And if at this point in his career, he, like, Bob Dylan doesn't have to listen to the record company saying you have to work with this producer. He's established enough that he can choose who he wants to work with. And so if he's hiring someone like Daniel Lanois, he's looking for a certain sound and what that producer can do. So it's not artificial sounding if Bob Dylan is looking for that sound. It can't be artificial if Bob Dylan wants that sound, because he wants the sound. It can't be an artificial Dylan sound because he's seeking that out, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, whatever sound he wants, it's not artificial because that's the sound he wants. So it doesn't make any sense. So I understand that it's not Bob Dylan with an acoustic guitar. I get that. And maybe this goes back to the whole Dylan going electric thing that's been beaten to death. But like, it's not artificial sounding if that's the kind of music that he wants to make. And a lot of people, and apparently the production on this album is quite divisive among people, critics, fans, whatever. But I really don't see how the production takes away from any of the lyrics, and I don't see how in fact it kind of elevates them. And this album seems to be like of Bob Dylan's later stuff. I find it's actually sort of truer to his form in a lot of ways. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's. I don't really understand the criticism of, like, I if you don't like it, fair enough, but to say that, you know, he's not, like, it's an artificial sound, or if like, I understand not being a fan of it, but to say that it's like inauthentic or something like that, I don't agree with that. Yeah. because I don't think there's a bad song on here. I think the production is really well done. It's very tasteful. It's understated, and like it sounds like it is atmospheric, and it creates these sort of textures, but it's done with like analog equipment, like guitars and like electric pianos and organs and things. So yeah, it is like creating. It's not like just miking a guitar. It is creating this atmosphere, but it doesn't take away from anything. It's not distracting.
Yeah, that's the main thing, is it's not distracting. Sometimes you get an idea and it can be a good idea or a bad idea, but if you take it too far, it can distract from what you're actually trying to accomplish. And you got to be very mindful of that. Depending on what you're trying to do. I mean, if what you're trying to do is that sound, then fine, that's great. But if you're a guy like Bob Dylan, where everything is your lyrics, where your lyrics are everything, you don't want to distract from.
Yeah, and I don't think this does at all.
No, I don't think it does at all.
No. So that brings us to the question: would you listen to this again?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I would too. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done, and yeah, I enjoyed the production on it, and I don't agree with that criticism. But anyway, we want to hear what you think. Be sure to go to. You can contact us at polyphonicpress.com. You can go to the contact page. Drop us a line, let us know what you think, and we'd love to hear from you, whether you agree or disagree with the album. And if you feel inclined, you can support us on Patreon. You can get these episodes a day before they go live, and there's all sorts of cool stuff there. And I think all those links are in the description or in the show notes, so you can check out those and go to the website, and lots of cool stuff there as well. And I think that just about does it. I'm Jeremy Boyd.
I'm John Van Dyke.
Take it easy.